Let's bring on Flyers president of hockey operations, Keith Jones, talk some hockey. Keith, great to have you back with us. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing well and appreciate the time, guys.
It's a fun time. I'll let Jeff ask the hockey questions after I start with a culture question. I saw you a few months back at a Chamber of Commerce event, and you talked about how one of your first jobs was bringing back the culture and the feeling to the organization, both internally and with the fan base. Can you talk about how that's been building it back up and the excitement you're seeing from people?
It's been going well, I believe, in that regard, at least from the feedback I get from the people that I see. I was just at the King of Prussia Mall yesterday doing some shopping, and it was interesting how many people wanted to stop and talk, Flyers hockey and the direction of the club, and most seemed pleased with the way that we were heading. So I think from that standpoint, at least from our fans, I believe that they think we're on the right track, and I give them a lot of credit. They've been patient in this, early part of this process as well, which is great. And then from a team perspective of, the most overused word, culture, it's good. I mean, our guys love each other, and that's what we want. We have a coach that's extremely well respected by the players that play for him because of his balanced outlook and his honesty, and how he manages to keep it level amongst the entire group. And I think they appreciate that. So on both fronts, I think we're off to a pretty decent start.
Keith, I want to focus on that word honesty. Ever since you joined the organization, Danny Perbear was part of the organization, your coach, you all are very transparent. And I think that in a city of the fans that we have, there's an appreciation of that, because everybody kind of knows what's coming without having to delve too far into it. They trust all of you because of the way you've been transparent. Is that an important thing that you've instilled in the organization?
I don't know that I instilled it, but I believe in it. I just don't think there's any other way to do it, especially when you're asking for people to kind of walk forward with you with, what's a vision for us, but starting to have some of it come to fruition, which is a positive. But it's also, asking your fans to, do something that's not, overly acceptable in some places. And I think our team is, in a position where we're going to get better, and, over time we're going to get a lot better, and we want to make sure that we include our fans in that journey. And I think people do appreciate that part of it.
You mentioned the relationship with the players and Coach Tortorella. Talk about the closeness that we see in the locker room, likely because of the fairness that he shows in terms of his critiques and his support of those players.
Yeah, I do believe that can bond players together also. I mean, there's not a divide, that's for sure. Everyone's had their moments where they've gone through some, difficult adversity, and I think have grown from that with the support of their teammates at the same time. And I really believe and know from watching and being around the group that they sincerely want each other to do well. And when they win collectively as a group, they celebrate. Individuals may have a great performance on any given night, but the team feels, really good for that player that, let's say, was player of the game. And I think our fans have had some fun looking at some of the, post-game celebrations when our guys rally around one of their teammates that they have determined to be the key guy on that given night. It's pretty cool. And I watch it myself, and I get a kick out of it. And sometimes I even laugh out loud with how much these guys, like each other. And I just think that's really valuable as you try to build and allow these kids to grow up together and eventually compete together for the Stanley Cup.
Keith, I believe the last time we talked to you, you were announcing games. You were a commentator. And somehow you found your way to this role. What about that journey? What about being a commentator helped you prepare you for this role?
It's kind of twofold. One, obviously, doing the national games put me in a position to really pay attention to the league, not just the players, but coaches and managers, and following teams to Stanley Cup championships. Watching all the ebbs and flows of their seasons and how difficult it was to, not just make the playoffs, but then ultimately win it all. I think all of that's valuable, which just kind of falls under that, I guess, the headline of experience. So that part I think is important, but from a local level, covering the Flyers at the same time and also doing morning radio in Philadelphia, you get a pretty solid understanding of what the fan base is all about. The fan base and they know you. And many conversations, and fortunately I enjoy talking to people. It's something that comes natural to me, and I've always enjoyed discussing the Flyers as both, as a commentator, as a fan myself, as a former player. And I think all of those things have really helped me in that regard. And knowing the team, like knowing your own team, because I followed it so closely, covering the games and paying attention to each individual player, I think that has been something that's really come in handy as well. And also having relationships with those players before I moved into my position. So all in all, I think it was in many cases a seamless transition in that regard.
When did you know this was something you wanted to do?
The day I was asked if it would be something I was interested in. Because I was not thinking about it, I can tell you that. That's one thing I've always taken, I don't know if pride's the right word, but I've always been dedicated to doing the job that I'm being asked to do and not trying to, do someone else's job that's already doing that. So, and it's really something I want throughout our organization. I just want people to be happy in the place that they're in and organically move up the ladder, not trying, to actively move up and want more all the time, but just to be satisfied in the job that they're doing. And then when those opportunities come, they'll be well-rounded and ready to take the next step. And I encourage people to move forward, but at the same time, I just want them to wait their turn.
Well, it certainly seems like you're enjoying it. And for fans who were dying to see a better product on the ice, I mean, we talk about some of the foundational players with Travis Sanheim and Travis Konechny. Talk about what you're seeing from these guys that are sort of the foundation of your organization and their development.
Yeah, I feel pretty lucky to have both of those guys and both under a contract long term. That is something that's extremely important. I think, if you watch teams that have been in long rebuilds, in many cases, they're not, keeping their homegrown talent past a certain age. In many cases, they've sold off those players for, younger assets. But boy, it takes a long time to come back from that. So I feel pretty fortunate that we have both Travises. I'm really thrilled that they're getting, some international recognition as being world-class players. That's pretty cool, but it's well earned by both players. And I love the fact that they're the best of friends, but also that they lead by example for the rest of our team. So that's going to help us with our younger core players that are, anywhere from a couple of years to 5 to 7 years younger than both of those guys. It gives them people that they can look up to and strive to be like, but also have the insulation of having those type of players around to allow them to grow and eventually take primetime roles on the team.
Keith, the model that you seem to be going for, and I don't know if it's on purpose, is I think the model kind of what the Phillies did a few years ago, is where they had this core of veterans who kind of could get people through it and then bringing up the young guys. How do you control the enthusiasm of the younger people that are on the team? Is it through this group of veterans, or is there some other way that you kind of make the enthusiasm go in the right direction? If that
the veterans, it does. The veterans matter a lot. There's no doubt. And then the leadership of your head coach and his coaching staff also becomes critically important. And the fact that players recognize that there's mutual respect from, the top with Dan Hilferty, to myself, to Danny, to Torts. I mean, it's a well-connected group, both from the hockey side and the business side, where, having leadership like Dan Hilferty provides really puts us in a position, I think, to be successful down the road because of a lot of the principles that he believes in too. So I really just think it's collectively an organizational type thing, but those younger players are, learning what it's like to be a part of a team, but also the fans are really getting to know them at the same time. They're not just arriving from elsewhere and taking 3 years to kind of figure out who they are. They're a fun group, and I love the fact that they let our fans have an inside peek into some of the things that make them tick. One thing I think the Phillies did extremely well was when they had the money to spend, they spend it, and they added those pieces, and including Bryce Harper. And when Harper came over, it wasn't immediate that you looked and all of a sudden the stadium was packed. It wasn't. The fans are kind of like, okay, show us where this is going, and eventually. Some of the younger players developed into outstanding ball players and members of the community, and then a few more pieces were added, and all of a sudden you have a team that's making the playoffs, selling out, the stadium, the ballpark, and then has continued to be a really fun team to follow that I think the community feels like they know. So I think that part of that model really could work for us. And, in a couple of years when we have money to spend, we'll be out looking for those type of players to add to the mix, like some of the ones that the Phillies brought in.
All right. Is this the longest anybody's gone without mentioning Michkov?
Yeah, it is. It is. It's great.
So how much fun has it been for you?
It's awesome. It really is. It's something you can always, look forward to, some of the creative plays that he makes, the attitude that he brings, and always keeping in mind his age. Just that we're just touching the surface of what he's going to be. And I think that's really exciting for us and our fan base. And I love the way people have embraced him, made him feel comfortable here, and gone out of their way to kind of support him through the number of jerseys that have been bought that have the 39 and the Michkov name on the back, to the way they cheer him on when he's playing too. It's been a really cool reaction from our fans, and really solid performances from him as he just gets his career started here in Philadelphia.
You ever try that Michigan shot yourself, or does that make you think,
I couldn't do that, to flip the puck to the referee. So some of the things he does, I honestly just shake my head. From the first time he stepped on our ice here at home, I had a pretty, solid idea of everything that he was about, but he has exceeded expectations.
So let's talk longer term. You've been, again, we've talked about the transparency. You've been honest. You're going to be sellers, not buyers at the deadline. How do you set yourself up both in the short term now and the long term to get Michkov a center and kind of upgrade that position and some of the other talent on the team to get you where you want to go to then spend that money?
Yeah, there's a couple of ways. One is through the draft. And, we have 6 picks in the first 2 rounds next year. So obviously it's a big draft for us. It's a pretty deep draft from the way it's kind of sorting itself out right now. The top has probably about 7 or 8 players that may be interchangeable by the end of it. There's no, Macklin Celebrini in the mix this year, but there's a lot of really good players that are going to have major, effects on the teams that are able to draft them. And then after that, it's a pretty deep draft from, let's say, 15 to 50, where you're going to get NHL players, and you're going to get players that are going to be, contributing in some cases to the top 6 forwards on your club. So that's exciting. The draft is certainly a way to do it. And obviously drafting Jet Luchenko last year, and Berglund last year, and Rahonen last year. I think obviously we're emphasizing that center position. And then it's going to be, through the free agent market or through trades. We're going to have to be creative, and we're going to have a little luck. So that's kind of the way we look at it.
No, Keith, you are a former Western Michigan Bronco. in a day when coming out of college wasn't as common as it is now. What is it about college hockey that has made it a better grooming ground for the NHL?
Well, it's more commonly used, and when I was in school and I'm going to Western Michigan, I went because I wasn't good enough to make it in junior A hockey. I wasn't at that time, drafted to the OHL. It was an option that presented itself to me. It was not necessarily something that I was looking to do. Now it's an option for kids to go there. They have a lot more control of their own, destiny or fate because of some of the powers that they've been given. When I played, the team that drafted you owned you for your 4 years, and it was up to them if they wanted to sign you or not after your 4 seasons were complete. Now, if a player wants to stay for 4 years, he can have the flexibility to become a free agent if so he chooses. So there's reasons for kids to go there that didn't necessarily or weren't options when I went back in the day. So I do think there's some differences in that regard, but there's definitely a lot of balance to college hockey, and there's a lot of really good players that are playing, and in many cases they're older players. There's some teams that have some 23 and 24-year-old kids, so it's a real challenge. And when you see somebody like Celebrini win the Hobie Baker as a 17-year-old, it opens your eyes and tells you just how advanced he is as a player.
One guy that's a free agent at the end of the season, but the team just seems to play different when he's out on the ice. Talk about Cam York and his long-term prospects with the team.
Yeah, no, Cam York's a very important player for us. It was too bad he got banged up this year. I think he missed maybe 13 games or so. He's a cerebral player. He's a brave player, blocks shots and does a terrific job in angling defensively and going up against the top lines on the opposition. He's a restricted free agent at the end of this year, so he's definitely somebody that we want to keep in the fold for a long time. He's proven to be a valuable asset for us, and we're excited about his future here in Philadelphia.
The Phillies are all about the future. If you could pick one player that we don't know about yet, that you're excited about, who's in the minors or who's playing in junior hockey, that's part of the Flyers organization, who would it be?
Ooh.
I think there's a good one in Alex Bump that's at Western Michigan. He's going to take him some time. He's a 5th-round pick. But he's a very gifted scorer. He's very good in the offensive zone. He provides something that we're looking for. He's good at separating along the wall and doing some really good things and creating offense from the blue line in and down in the corners. So I believe he's going to have a bright future for us. There's some easy choices. Obviously, Luchenko is one. Oliver Bonk is another. Those ones obviously stand out to me, but there is a guy like Bump who's someone that I'm really looking forward to see once his college season ends, and he has the option to go back to school one more year if he wanted to also. But I'd like to see him start working his way into the pro game as well.
Well, we can't wait to see these young guys develop. Looking forward to seeing what moves you make as the team goes forward, and always appreciate you giving us some time to talk about it. Keith Jones, thanks for joining us, man.
Thank you very much, guys. Have a great day. Take care.
Take it easy.